We want to go first to Baghdad, where my colleague Rachel Maddow is reporting from a military base inside what used to be called the Green Zone, now the International Zone. Rachel, good morning. What are your first impressions there in Baghdad to our breaking news tonight?
Good morning, Keith. Thank you very much for that. And I want to say mostly thank you to Richard and his crew and his team for putting themselves out there to get on that Stryker Brigade right now. It is technologically amazing that they're able to broadcast into a live satellite feed from that moving vehicle as the last U.S. combat troops leave Iraq. Nobody else is able to do this. This is exclusively an NBC News and MSNBC story right now. And for that, I'm grateful that we have that technology, but also to the crews and producers and to Richard for making that all possible. It's very humbling to be here just to see how hard it is to broadcast from someplace as comparatively cushy as the International Zone, the IZ, a.k.a. the Green Zone, where I have been since this past weekend. We have not let the cat out of the bag that I've been here or that I was traveling here ahead of time, essentially to preserve operational secrecy. The operational security of this mission, in terms of the exact date, the exact route, the exact means by which U.S. combat troops are leaving, has been a very closely held secret. I apologize, for example, to the people on our staff on the Rachel Maddow show who did not know where I was or why Chris Hayes had been called in. They knew, I think, that eventually that I was on assignment, but not everybody even on our floor of our building knew what was going on here, because this has been very, very sensitive. You'll remember that back in 2004, June 28, 2004, there was an important handover here in Iraq as well. That was the end of the Coalition Provisional Authority. Remember that? Paul Bremer with the Timberlands and his business suit. On that date, in June 2004, the Coalition Provisional Authority handover also took place early. There was a deadline by which we knew it was going to happen. And if you remember back to reporting on that at that time, a couple of days before that deadline was due to happen, the transition actually took everybody by surprise. I think that's a little bit of the thinking behind the military leaving 2 weeks before, the combat troops leaving 2 weeks before everybody expected them to be out of Iraq. It's a momentous time, a time obviously to reflect back on what has happened here in the last 7.5 years. But also, I mean, I thought that I would have a lot of political feelings. I thought that I would have a lot of, I guess, national security feelings about us leaving in this long war. But the thing that I'm mostly feeling is the fact that those troops in the 4-2 Stryker Brigade, they're going home. And that small stuff is really what you feel from here.
I can tell you, and obviously that feeling must be much, much, much stronger there than it would be for our audience or for us here in New York or anywhere else that we'll be going to in the next few hours. But that feeling is also present here. This is not a time of politics. It is a time of our friends, neighbors, kids. They're all leaving. They're coming back, with the exception of that 50,000 force of trainers and consultants, advisors that will stay there. I've got to ask you, Rachel, about the disposition of the others who left. This is now all coming out through the Pentagon, in essence, via this reporting from Richard Engel on that convoy. What do we know about the disposition of the others? When did they leave? How long has the super quick drawdown been going on?
Well, the drawdown, Keith, has been really going on in a large sense since last summer and since the end of the surge. It was in the Status of Forces Agreement, as it was signed and agreed to by George W. Bush at the very end of his presidency, although it didn't get much press attention at the time, and by the government of Nouri al-Maliki here in Iraq. The agreement was, yes, that all U.S. troops would be out of Iraq by the end of next year, by the close of the calendar year 2011, but that all U.S. troops would pull out of Iraqi cities by last June, by June 2009. The exact date of what's happening right now, this combat troop deadline that the U.S. forces here have beaten by a couple of weeks, that was really set by Barack Obama. But the dates that were stuck in stone, that were written in stone because of that Status of Forces Agreement, were last June and next December. And since last June, there has been a large-scale drawdown going on here. The numbers I've seen suggest 4,000 troops a week have been leaving Iraq. The exact numbers of how many people are here at any one moment are hard to come by, because it's hard to figure out who counts as a combat troop and who counts as a non-combat troop. But honestly, although the military does not talk about it in these terms, a lot of the mission of this past year has been the kind of training and assistance that will continue next year with the 50,000 Americans that remain. Another huge part of the mission here has just been leaving. The logistics of getting this many tens of thousands of Americans and 7.5 years of war detritus and war footprint out of here. It is also true, and it is an uncomfortable truth, that a lot of the logistics of this withdrawal are a contractor gig, are being organized and run by a lot of for-profit U.S. contractors. You don't hear complaints about that here. It's just a fact of life.